G'day, legends. So I think it is now time to ask the question that I know is going to start an argument down there in the comments, but let's have a go of it. Today, we're going to be asking, now that Francis Ngannou, Tom Aspinall, and Jon Jones have all fought this year, who is currently the best MMA heavyweight in the world? That is what I want to try and explore in today's video, and let me know your answer down there in the comments as well. Now, this is weird, right? Because I think the answer to this question, it seems incredibly obvious to every single person out there, but a lot of people out there are going to have completely different answers. This is one of those fun conversations that is happening in MMA right now, and unfortunately, because of the state, let's face it, because of the Saudis, I don't know if we're ever going to get an answer to this question. If they hadn't have pumped the PFL full of money, that organization wouldn't exist and wouldn't be able to pay Francis Ngannou his exorbitant paycheck to go over there and fight. So if this is anybody's fault, it's the Saudis' fault. But either way, let us not point fingers. Let's see if we can piece this together. I think, speaking of the Saudis and PFL, we should start with Francis Ngannou, right? Francis is the longest current reigning heavyweight champion in MMA. He never really lost his belt in the UFC, moved over to the PFL, and got an instant win over there. So Francis is going to be hinging a lot of this argument because people are going to say beating Renan Ferreira in the PFL isn't that big of a deal. But when you look at Francis's heavyweight run, ladies and degenerates, he dominated everybody in front of him all the way up until Stipe Miocic in his first attempt to win the heavyweight title. And he dominated everyone ahead of him the exact same way that Aspinall has dominated everyone ahead of him. Knockouts, although Aspinall might have mixed in a couple of submissions as well. It has mainly been the knockouts, right? But on top of that, Francis also stepped into the boxing world, and in the eyes of many of the fans out there, he should have won that fight against Tyson Fury, which gives him a damn good little resume right there. So Francis is without a doubt one of the most devastating heavyweights in the world at the moment. Whether or not he beat up Renan Ferreira at the PFL, it just shows that Francis has still got it, right? And you look at the quality of competition this year, it's not like it took Francis 3 rounds to get rid of Ferreira, giving up the second round like Jon Jones did against a 42-year-old Stipe Miocic. On one of the judges' scorecards, Jon Jones lost that round to Stipe. And I'm just saying that to point out, Francis ran through Renan Ferreira and Jon Jones put on a masterclass, but he put on a masterclass against a heavy bag. And he did have to do the old stick the hands in the eyes and run away whenever Stipe was starting to mount a very good offense. If Francis was still at the UFC, you could argue that Francis beat Stipe a lot better than Jon Jones did, right? Not only have we actually seen that in the past, right? They were both in there against the exact same opponent. And when Stipe was more dangerous, he was younger. Francis cleaned him up quicker. But if they fought today, if that fight happened this weekend and it was Francis in there against that Jon Jones, I think Francis would have done the exact same thing he did against Stipe the second time, except a lot quicker. It took Jon Jones much longer than it took Francis. So you could have Francis above Jon Jones, but then there's that second thing that they both have in common, and that's Ciryl Gane. Right now, it took Francis 25 minutes. Francis lost a couple of rounds to Ciryl Gane. Some people think Ciryl Gane won that fight. And then, of course, you got Jon Jones against Ciryl Gane. Jon Jones absolutely obliterated Ciryl Gane, made him look easy. So when you do have their resumes side by side when it comes to the Gane-Stipe argument, they sort of cross each other out. You've got Francis knocking out Stipe, no problem. And you've got Jones taking out Gane, no problem. Stipe was a little bit older than Gane. Gane was a little bit undercooked when it came to the wrestling. They sort of come in at a dead heat. But then, of course, you've got Tom Aspinall, right? He is the interim champ. He is the youngest of all of them, might be the strongest out of all of them. Francis might be stronger. He's probably the most well-rounded, skill for skill, when you look at all the heavyweights at the moment. But the big argument for Tom Aspinall, people say, is where is his resume? He hasn't got the kind of names that Francis and Jon Jones has. He hasn't got nearly the same names as Jon Jones has, but that's not exactly Tom's fault, is it, right? Tom is fighting the division that he fits into. He can't shred down to light heavyweight Jon Jones, and unfortunately, this isn't super heavyweight. There is nowhere he can move up to. And when you look at the division that he is in, he has destroyed most of the top 10, and I think when you average it all together, it comes in at just under 1 round or just over. It's essentially he has destroyed most of the heavyweight top 10 division in about a round, right? You got Volkov, Pavlovich, Blades, Spivak, Tybura. Just a great who's who of who's in heavyweight at the moment. I don't know if you could ask for a fighter to be even more impressive when it comes to the youth and the skill and taking out the names that are being given to him at the time, right? So is it the amount of heavyweights that you have destroyed or the quality of the heavyweights that you have destroyed? That is a real question when it comes to who is the best heavyweight in the world right now. You look at Curtis Blades. He's never been a UFC champion or an interim champion. He lost to Ngannou. He lost to Pavlovich. He's lost to Derek Lewis before fighting Tom. Then you've got Pavlovich. He's never been a UFC champion, right? He's lost to Volkov and Aspinall. And then you've got Marcin Tybura as well. Never been a UFC champion. 6 losses before fighting Aspinall. Lost to Derek Lewis, Spivak, Augusto Sakai, Volkov, right? So the quality of wins that Aspinall has got is not nearly as high as the quality of wins that Jon Jones has got. Jon Jones' heavyweight wins has got Cyril Gane, who is a former UFC interim champ, only lost to Jon Jones himself and Francis, and the Francis loss is arguable. And then he's also gotten a win over Stipe Miocic, the greatest heavyweight of all time, 2-time heavyweight champ. Defended his belt multiple times. Only lost to DC and Francis Ngannou. Jones's wins are much more quality than Tom's wins. When you put it like that, it does sort of take Tom a rung down the ladder, doesn't it? But that is not exactly fair to Tom if the best heavyweights in the world aren't giving him a chance at fighting them. Now, Francis, it's not exactly his fault. He's in a different organization. And Tom and Jones, he is sort of bogarting the belt. He is cock-blocking it. He is not allowing Tom Aspinall to just move up and fight him. He's got to do this dance with the fans and with Dana White to see if he can squeeze $30 million out of Dana. That's never going to happen. So he's holding John down the ladder a little. He's holding Tom down the ladder a little bit of best heavyweight in the world. So I guess it really is between Jones and Francis, right? Stipe was more dangerous when he fought Francis. He was younger. He had a better working game plan that had already worked against Francis in the past. He was real heavyweight competition, right? He had to work himself back over 3 fights against DC to be the Stipe Miocic that we all knew. And Francis Ngannou just slept him, right? Then, in the Jones fight, Stipe, he was just a heavy bag. We all saw it. We all predicted it. And some people are still blown away by the outcome. The people who are blown away about what Jon Jones did to Stipe Miocic, they're dumb. They are the type of people that are surprised that it's wet when it rains, or that fire is hot, or that pussy feels good. They're idiots. So if you're going to use the quality of fighters to diminish Aspinall in the argument, keep that same energy and look at the quality of Stipe Miocic at the time of the Stipe Miocic fight. If you're going to praise Tom for all of his work that he has done at top 10 heavyweight, keep that same energy and praise Francis for the same thing. Because when he was in the top 10 as an up-and-coming contender, he did the exact same thing as Tom Aspinall did. All wins by devastating knockout. And you could say, yeah, but heavyweight sucked back then. But hello, heavyweight always sucks, always. So they both knock out the top 10, right? You can clearly say Francis is better than Jon at the moment because of the resume when it comes to Gane and Stipe. Or you could say Jones is better than Francis because of his overall skill at MMA. It's a hard one to look at. It is a hard one to look at, especially when you consider that Francis struggled with Gane. But who has got the deeper heavyweight legacy? Who has got the best heavyweight legacy when you look at their entire heavyweight careers? I think it's very, very clear to say that we know who the best heavyweight in the world right now is. We break down Tom Aspinall, Jon Jones, and Francis Ngannou. It's pretty clear who is the best heavyweight in the world right now. And the answer obviously is...